There's often a lot of games people hold up as classics or pillars of gaming that really change the landscape as a whole. One of those games for me, and something that goes even beyond gaming into stuff like art or abstract art as a whole, is Yume Nikki. Yume Nikki is a game that I got into very early into my internet presence, and its impact on how I appreciate art and generally how I appreciate games and their visual storytelling really has become something that I really find to be super valuable to my taste and how I approach criticism of games in the future. Yume Nikki is an experience more than a video game to me. It's something that goes beyond just what's simply on the surface and goes into a lot of fan theories and a lot of interesting interpretations of the game that kind of remind me of abstract art and how we approach stuff like Picasso paintings or minimalist art pieces that are inside like museums and such. In this video, I kind of want to break down the narrative of Yume Nikki, the experience of going through it, the many theories, and the general community and impact this game has had over the past 20 years. This video is more of a celebration of Yume Nikki and really bringing everyone together to really appreciate what this game has done for indie games and gaming as a whole over the past 2 decades. Thank you guys for hopping on by. This is Sleep, and welcome to my Yume Nikki breakdown. Enjoy! Yume Nikki, released in 2004, was developed by pseudo-anonymous developer Kikiyama and was developed in the 2003 edition of RPG Maker. The game quickly picked up steam on the internet, with it slowly developing a cult following due to its premise of being someone basically making a game around their dreams and what they wrote down and drew in their dream journal. The game developed a lot of theories around it, with a lot of narratives being thrown around and what people were trying to interpret the game to be. The game slowly updated over time, with it getting more and more effects, which were basically upgrades in the game, and different areas being introduced every update. Mysteriously in 2007, the game's development halted, and the developers seemingly disappearing from the internet. This only added to the strange mythos and mystery around the game, with people wondering if there was some real connection to what was going on in the game and what was going on with the narrative and symbolism of the game, and if it was somehow connected to Kikiyama, the developer. This caused a lot of concern due to a lot of the theories being thrown around about what the game actually meant, and I think now is the time to talk about what the game is, how it plays, and what people think the story is really about. Gameplay-wise, Yume Nikki opens up with you playing as Maratsuki, a young girl who seemingly doesn't want to leave her room due to her being trapped or her own personal reasons. Within this room, all you can interact with is her desk, where you can just sit at it. You can try to interact with the TV, but it just goes to a blank channel, or you can play the NES game Nasu, which is this fun little game where you play as this little red dude going around and eating this stuff. He's a little cool dude, I like him. The game really kicks off though when you go into your bed, where you can go to sleep and fall into a dream world. When you wake up in the dream world, you wake up in basically the same apartment building you started the game off in, and while there's some very subtle changes within the environment, the game really changes when you finally leave that door and find yourself in this weird place called the Nexus, with all these doors in a circle-like shape. Each of these doors leads to a different world, and you're able to explore and look for stuff called effects, which are these little upgrades that can visually change how Maratsuki looks, which sometimes affects the environments in very specific places. This adds this sense of exploration, and often the most interesting part of this game overall, for me at least, was going to my friends and talking about, hey, did you do this one thing? There's this really cool event when you went to this one world, like we would write out these whole maps and stuff, and it was just this really awesome experience back in the day. In fact, the entire internet kind of treated this game the same way as I did back in the day, with the internet rapidly looking for different effects and trying to find different events to document on different wikis and stuff. It was this giant collaborative effort, and it's something that's really cool and helped to the infamy of this game, with the internet uncovering more and more and eventually finding these crazy secrets that are connecting to make this really interesting plotline that, while it was extremely vague, they could get some ideas out there and hopefully theorize as to what it all meant. Mix this with the oppressive soundscapes, the amazing, almost abstract visuals, and a lot of the different inspirations that this game pulled from Mother to LSD Dream Emulator. The dream world feels oppressive, but it also feels comforting at the same time, with these like different songs that kind of loop and make you feel like you're going into this trance. It's like walking on this through line between comfort and discomfort in this beautiful and artful way. It's really amazing, and it stood the test of time. There's a lot of areas and moments that really stand out to me personally, such as the snow world, which is this really cloudy and almost ethereal feeling place where you're getting chased by a lot of these weird like bird creatures, but it has this almost like dreamy and nice feeling atmosphere that makes you want to explore, but also feels like you're on the edge of like falling off a cliff or something constantly. It's a really cool place. Another part I really enjoy this game is the mall and sewer part, which has this oppressive and like scary atmosphere that makes it feel like you're constantly being watched and something can attack you at like any moment. This immediately gets contradicted by this really cool rooftop scene where you can go on there with the witch effect and fly and have this atmospheric and kind of breakbeat kind of song play, and it's really nice and it makes you feel like you're comforted, and it's this weirdly beautiful and kind of out of place moment in this game that's just really awesome and calming. If I'm not making it apparent with my experiences with this game's kind of like a therapy to me. It feels like this weird bubble where I can just chill and explore and really not have anything to worry about and just take as much time as I would need to for just embracing the environments and just loving the visual elements that are on display here. Like, it's just art in its purest form. This game's really inspiring to me because it's very bare bones and it's very much just like, oh, you're walking around these different environments and really looking at stuff. And I think that's just the beauty of Yume Nikki. You really can just appreciate and adore what there is and really not have to like worry about the crazier things in like a video game, like the battle elements or such. It's just visual artistic expression, and it's something that has kind of translated to my appreciation of like abstract art, where I can look at abstract art and while it might just be a bunch of like paint splatters or anything, it's what you take from it and what you just visually feel from looking at it that makes you really like resonate with a piece. Like, I constantly see people shit on like abstract art all the time. Oh, it's just a bunch of like abstract shapes. Oh, it's not the most like detailed or realistic piece of art, but it's really just the experience of like being there and looking at this art piece and being like, wow, this kind of resonates with me in like a weird way I can't really describe. That's how I feel about Yume Nikki, and that's kind of what's made it a really hard like game for me to cover in the past, because I've attempted to make this video like a couple of times in the past and it's just been really rough for me because I can't really describe like the feeling I get from this game. It's just bliss and artfulness and kind of ignorance in like the most beautiful way. I'm not really focusing on what the gameplay is or what the individual events are, because honestly that's not what makes the game special to me. It's the experience and like beauty of appreciating the art and really walking away with your own interpretation of it. I could sit on my ass all day and be really boring and just read out, oh, this is the list of the NPCs, these are what the different areas do, this is what the effects do, and honestly that just wouldn't get across what the experience of Yume Nikki is. This game really started picking up steam because of people's own personal experiences being shared on the internet, and them running across things like the infamous uboa encounter, which was this encounter where you flick the lights on and off in this house, and randomly have a chance of encountering this horrible monster, which has this weird sound, and it makes it feel really aggressive and off-putting in comparison to anything else in this game. It's a really scary moment in this game, and while it's kind of a jump scare, it's a really effective use of one. This moment would be kind of imprinted on the minds of the internet, and it would leave its impact on game developers for years to come, with indie games such as Omori directly referencing it in their games. This game's impact would actually be felt for a long time, with a lot of fan games kind of creating their own subgenre within the RPG Maker community. One of those fan games would actually create one of the coolest series within the RPG Maker community with the Lisa series. Lisa within itself would inspire games such as Undertale and plenty of other Earthbound inspired RPGs for years to come. The discussion around this game would continue on for years to come too, with there being a lot of discussion as to what the game might actually mean with its symbolism and what it might be hinting towards in terms of an overarching narrative. But really kicked off a lot of that kind of discussion around this game and really had people reconsider a lot of the different symbolism this game overall is when the game finally got an ending in which you'd collect all the effects throughout the game and lay them like weird eggs in the Nexus. This in turn would unlock some steps on the balcony which would allow Madatsuki to jump off the building, committing suicide and ending the game on a really bleak and out of nowhere note. When this initially dropped, people were really confused as to what this all meant and how the dreams that were being presented to us really helped contextualize this moment within the game. People were asking stuff like what was leading Madatsuki to really go to this conclusion in her life, and what was tearing at her so badly that she wouldn't leave her room and have all this trauma being presented throughout these weird disturbing dreams. There's one really popular theory in particular I want to go in depth on and talk about the evidence that really supports it and why it's really compelling to me, but before I get into it I do want to put up a little bit of a warning because there's a lot of sensitive material this theory kind of covers covers, and I know how much bringing that up could really affect someone that's going through that kind of trauma. So this is just a little heads up, and here's a little timestamp just in case that really bothers you and you really don't want to experience that kind of stuff. But let me just say it's like a huge integral part to a lot of the discussion around this game, so just a little heads up for you. But for those not really bothered by this, let's continue on into something I like to call the uboa theory. The uboa theory is a very common theory within the Yume Nikki fandom, in which a narrative has kind of been built around the fandom about a lot of the imagery and how visually a lot of it kind of resembles the human body, and how elements of stuff like the uboa encounter kind of give him the impression that this story is about sexual assault and how Maratsuki was assaulted or watched someone else get assaulted when she was younger, and it kind of left this impression on her, causing her not to really want to go outside much. This is kind of backed up by like a lot of the imagery of phallic shapes and a lot of the like woman uterus kind of imagery throughout the game. It's one of the more interesting theories in my opinion because it kind of recontextualizes the game as a whole. It makes you reconsider what you're really looking at. I don't think this is what the entire story is about in terms of like the visuals and what they represent. Like there's definitely a lot of like comfort, feeling like you're disconnected. Like there's a scene in which like a bunch of like creatures are kind of having a party and you're not really able to join them and you have to look at them from a distance, and there's like that kind of imagery of like loneliness and maybe how the kind of struggles has kind of affected her life from day to day. Like maybe the entire dream world is just the sense of escapism from like the monotony of life, and maybe that's like what Maratsuki is like struggling with. It's kind of a Silent Hill-esque look into a character and a lot of the internal struggles they go through, and the subtle ways that the game kind of portrays a lot of stuff it's tackling is absolutely masterful, and it reminds me a lot of stuff like David Lynch and a lot of the like really big filmmakers and artists that really inspire me personally. And that's kind of the subtle magic of this game as a whole. Yume Nikki is a game I see constantly present within artist circles and being constantly brought up as, oh, it really inspired me and really got me into like game development and such, and I think that's kind of, again, the magic of this game. It's really what you take out of the experience going forward from after you play the game, even if you don't finish it, that makes Yume Nikki such an instant classic for me. But that's about all I really have to offer in terms of like discussion around this game. This game's just beautiful and art in its purest form. If you guys haven't checked it out, it's literally free on Steam, and so I'd recommend you go and give it some of your time. But that's about it. I really appreciate you guys hopping on by for this video. This has been Sleep, and I've just had a pleasure entertaining you guys. I hope to see you guys next time. Click that subscribe button or check out my Patreon if you want to support me with future content. The people who've actually backed me on Patreon got this video a week earlier than everyone else, and so if you want to like help me and get early access to content, go check that shit out. It'll be a huge help to me going forward so I can do this full time. Thank you guys for watching. I am Sleep, and I hope to see you guys next time. See ya!